Good morning, everybody. I just want to start off by saying very sorry about the technical issue with our webinar link. We've resent that link out to everybody, so everybody's managed to log on okay. If not, though, today's session will be recorded. We'll get it up on our website later on afternoon, and people can review that later then. So you're very welcome to today's webinar. We're joined by Natasha Kinsella from Regional Skills Dublin. And she's going to speak about how to unlock upskilling opportunities for your business. If anybody has any questions throughout today's presentation, if you just pop it into the Q&A section, and once Natasha's finished presenting, we'll do a short Q&A at the end. Okay, Natasha, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Kieran, and delighted to be here and appreciate the time that you've taken out of your busy schedules to log in this morning. As Kieran noted, information on the slide deck will be made available to you, so there's no need to be taking too many notes, and hopefully you'll link in with me after anyway. I suppose today is really a start of the journey. If you're not already engaged with regional skills, or certainly within the skills ecosystem, it might be the start of that journey today. And we hope that today will give you some context around why we exist, how we can help, and certainly the connections within the full breadth of the ecosystem might relay today to say, yeah, we have a priority here in our business, and now we know where we need to go to try and get the solution to meet that need. So to start with a little bit of context around regional skills as a national initiative, we report directly into the Department of Further Education. We are in existence since 2016. And when I say we, while I look after Dublin, obviously, region, the map there demonstrates the 9 managers that are currently in existence around the country to support any business, regardless of what region you're positioned in. And maybe some of those businesses might have an office in Dublin, but also outside of Dublin, or certainly employees outside of Dublin. So we're very much guided by the Irish government's national skills strategy. As I say, there's 9 of us, and it's very much about our role that we play as an impartial conduit in bringing employers and the education and training system together. And when I talk about the education and training system, I talk about the full gambit of offering. So that could be further education, it could be higher education, skill net provision, local enterprises, offices, or indeed any state provider or government department that is within the remit of skills provision and meeting the business needs. And while we get together at a forum, and I'll go into the structure of the forum, it's about prioritising, well, what are the emerging skills needs within the region, nationally, and how as a system that we can provide the solution to meet those needs. So what I've done at the end of this slide is actually put a link in there where you see regional skills contacts. So if your business is based outside of Dublin, certainly you have the opportunity to link in with my colleagues and my equivalent in the other regions wherever you do exist. What I'm going to do is maybe focus a little bit on the structure of Dublin, and that gives you a sense of how nationally the other regions actually work. Dublin is quite unique, not alone because of the business presence in Dublin. I mean, the latest figures that we look at is certainly there's well over 130,000 active businesses in Dublin, but most of those are actually within the category of micro and small to medium sized businesses. So that could be businesses from 0 to 10 employees or up to 250 employees. That's quite important for us as a priority to focus on those. And the reason we do that is because most of those businesses may not have necessarily an expert in L&D within your environment. So the expectation is the business owner or managers pivot into lots of different areas, who maybe become responsible for people management, leadership skills, managing teams, and certainly addressing upskilling opportunities that those employees require as those employees pivot into different areas as the business develops and grows. or is certainly impacted by particular external challenges that they face, which I'll go into a little later on. So our structure is very much led by business. We have an industry chair, currently Barry Prost. We also have a vice industry chair, Christine McGrath is noted there. And then we have a number of stakeholders. On the one hand, you see there on the slide, we have all our educational support stakeholders. And that includes further education, higher education, and our SkillNet state body. We also then have the business aspect to feed in and articulate out from their client bases what are the challenges in terms of skills priorities that they're facing every day. And that includes our state agencies, in addition, IDA and Enterprise Ireland. We also have local authorities involved, the local enterprise offices, and a number of key business aspects from the likes of Dublin Chamber, Small Firms Association, ISME, and others, and the Great Chamber Dublin Alliance. We have, I suppose, an opportunity to engage with those, to reach and scale the level of reach that we can meet with solutions from a state perspective, but also other government departments. As we know, for most businesses, upskilling is one challenge, but also recruitment and building that talent pipeline as your business develops is also a challenge. So we have another stakeholder from Department of Social Protection equally who feed into some of those support mechanisms. And it's about prioritizing what you need. So what do we do? Our core element is engaging at a granular level with as many businesses as we can. And that's about ensuring that, one, you're aware of the state funded provisions. So importantly to note, if you don't already know, most businesses do actually avail of some elements or aspects of skills provision. But then there's those businesses that don't, because they're not aware, they don't know where to go and maybe who to contact. But nonetheless, all businesses from a tax perspective pay 1% of their tax based from their employee base into what's called the National Training Fund. That's important to ensure that you're then availing back of how that funding is actually spent. And some of the examples that I'll demonstrate later on in the presentation will illustrate for you where that funding is prioritised. So it's through that engagement of articulating out with each business we engage with through a skills audit. And it's very much a conversation where we try and articulate with you what each of your employees require, maybe in upskilling, both now as a priority and into the future. And that informs equally when we aggregate that data upwards to our department from all regional levels. It certainly does inform policy priorities of where that funding aspect from the National Training Fund should be geared, prioritising the needs that the businesses have actually identified. So we engage cross-sectoral, so the door is open to any particular business, regardless of size or regardless of the sector or particular focus that your business has. So we conduct, I suppose, roundtables, webinars such as this, in articulating those needs, but then directly revert back to each company and go through with them what the solution might look like based on the needs that they've identified. So we have industry groupings, the educator groups, sectoral links, and we have county council specific sectoral groups that prioritise on each particular need. So that's from various different sectors, as I mentioned, that we look at and address, but equally then inform through our educational partners that are identified how the curriculum should prioritise and focus on the solution at a particular point in time, or what that solution might look like, whether it's online, in classroom, accredited or non-accredited, however that solution might look, where the business can then decide what suits actually them to deliver that solution. But it's important that we're informed by that labour market intelligence. And we work with a number of other stakeholders, not alone for example, the Department of Enterprise, where the Expert Future Skills actually does conduct research within particular sectoral needs in identifying at national level what the skill needs are. And we use those intelligence pieces as a baseline to then reaffirm what those needs are within our own regions through our engagement. We work with other stakeholders such as SOLAS and the Statistical Labour Market Unit, who on an ongoing basis throughout the year publish a number of labour market and skill supply intelligence that informs what's been utilised within the system, but also where there might be gaps in the system that then our providers can actually address some of those gaps. Other agencies, Enterprise Ireland and IDA, also publish. We have a project in particular with Enterprise Ireland called Spotlight on Skills, and that is articulating each engagement that we conduct with a business to inform upwards about those policy decisions and funding aspects. We, as the 9 regions, though, collaborate quite a lot. So we would share that intelligence among each of the regions, where maybe there are particular issues coming up in 2 or 3 regions, that then we combine that intelligence, work and combine with those businesses to then come up with solutions that maybe currently aren't within the system, that can be addressed by collaboration and partnership to meet those particular needs through the system. We know most of the challenges that are being faced by business as we continue that engagement. So things like megatrends in areas such as digitalisation, automation, green sustainability, those are particular areas that we know are priorities right now, but recognising each particular business, depending on the life cycle that they're in, the needs might be quite different. So that journey in terms of engagement with the skills solutions might look different. Hence, our involvement to point you in the direction of various different solutions that you can then see what suits you best and develop that, whether it's 3 to 6 months down the line, 1 to 2 years, or even more strategically up to 5 years. So that informs some of our provisions in terms of expanding as the needs and the impact of digitalisation, for example, is having on the business. Transversal and management skills, certainly we see in micro, small businesses, is a particular need, given that most of those, as I mentioned, do not necessarily have an L&D expert in-house. And that's where we can help you understand what those needs might look like and what the solution to address those needs can do for you and your particular business and your employees, and then the ability to learn. We want, I suppose, look at that life cycle learning opportunity, and I think most individuals now who work in business are taking some level of responsibility in their own capacity to learn, because they understand that they need to pivot in particular as the business develops and grows, that it's not a case where they're just concentrating on one particular area in the business throughout their work life cycle as well. So that ability to learn is quite important as well, and we can support some of that through skills provision too. Some of the examples now I'm going to highlight, and again, it's important to recognise that when we engage with the educational provision, it's not just a one solution fits all. And equally, there's a lot of other wider opportunities to engage with some of our stakeholders. For example, here, higher education, there's opportunities to maybe engage in actually co-design, co-delivery of some of the curricula. There's opportunities to access graduate recruitment, to access internships and placement opportunities. But one of the examples I'm going to highlight here in higher education and what we're seeing based on our engagement with business is they're looking for more quicker, shorter hit and stackable opportunities of micro-credential learning courses. And we've seen that over the last number of years. So, on the basis of businesses informing that need, certainly the educational system has pivoted and reacted. And one of the projects here under the Human Capital Initiative is particular provisions that are, in fact, micro credential courses. They tend to be about 6 to 12 weeks in lots of different areas. I've highlighted some of the areas here that we're seeing are continuously coming up through the engagement with business. Things like IT and computer science, business management, food nutrition, all those areas are currently impacting businesses right now. But the beauty of these offerings is they are funded under what we term that National Training Fund. And there is a subsidy funding provided, whether it be 50% or 80%, or equally collaboration through a SkillNet network that actually parts fund some of these provisions. So if you're not aware of this already, certainly there are a number of provisions under micro credentials. There's also a dedicated website. But even outside of the 7 universities that are highlighted here, there are other universities that offer micro credentials with the same subsidised funding, that there is hundreds of courses available at both national and regional specific level that you can engage with. So once we've articulated what the need is with you, we can certainly guide you to that solution that might meet that particular need. But it also allows you, for an individual who is an employee, to stack that qualification so that they can progress as they want to continue that learning journey throughout that cycle that they work with you. The other opportunity then, and another example here, is within further education, and this is what's called MicroQuals. Again, these are shorter, quicker hit provisions in particular areas, again, that I've highlighted here: the sustainability, digital, robotics, business innovation, market development. These are particular areas that have been guided, as you can see the list of our stakeholders who've informed that solution basis. And those offerings, again, are fully funded because of the National Training Fund through our educational training partners, of which there are 16 education and training boards around the country. Not alone in Dublin, we have 2 large scale, but they are positioned in every other region around the country to allow you to avail and access. And again, the key pivot thing here is most of them are actually available online. So the solution that we know you have a challenge taking time out of the daily work, that there is an opportunity to access these from an online perspective. Other solutions, obviously, again, this is eCollege, paid through and funded by the National Training Fund, through and led by Solus. And again, this is where any individual can register themselves online with full tutor support for over, at the moment, 80 provisions that are fully online, that can be facilitated in their own time at home or certainly in the workplace, whatever suits them, that they can access these particular provisions, but do it in their own time, and certainly avail of that tutor support on the online portal that is eCollege. There are huge developments still ongoing, so you might find where the screenshot now shows over 80 courses available, there certainly will be a lot more as this progresses and develops in terms of the offerings that's made available to anyone that registers on eCollege. Another particular example, and this is where I suppose the other aspects of generating that talent pipeline in the business is a key element. What we've seen since 2014, as this screen highlights and demonstrates, the stats speak for themselves very much so. In 2014, we had an offering of about 27 apprenticeship type models. And traditionally, what we find when we talk to businesses about apprenticeships is that's the traditional route with the hard hats, some of the construction, plumbing, or certainly some of the painters or fitting courses that used to be involved. That is generally seen as the traditional routes for apprenticeship. But now we can see in 2024, there's actually 77 provisions. And again, the astounding thing in the apprenticeship space is it's developed through further education right into higher education, where actually we have apprenticeship programs up to PhD level. And we can see that on the basis of both the apprentice population, which has gone from over 6,000 to now well over just under 30,000, and certainly on the employer base of those that are now involved in apprenticeship. We see there's a lot more employers from over 3,000 to now 9,000 plus employers that are now involved in the apprenticeship system. And this is because you have offerings in, as you can see, one of the slides, OEM apprenticeships. We have apprenticeships in retail, in hospitality, in financial services, in insurance, in engineering, you name it, there's an apprenticeship offering there for you. And again, these are expanding, ongoing. Even by the end of this year, there'll be more added to that 77. We collaborate quite a lot with a number of the stakeholders who actually offer both at further ed and higher ed level to ensure maybe that where the gaps might lie in apprenticeship provision, that we collaborate with a number of business stakeholders to say, well, is there a need, and is that need on offer or maybe not on offer? Could the solution be that work-based approach through apprenticeship, where the apprentice both works and earns as well as studies while they go through the apprenticeship program? It facilitates mentorships within the business itself and those businesses that are approved to take on apprentices. But again, as the employer, you financially benefit because there is a grant subsidy, €2,000 for every apprentice you take on over the course of the apprenticeship. So again, both financial supports, building the talent pipeline of those supports, and accessing to develop those individuals to grow and learn as they work through their apprenticeship program with you. So that's an opportunity to develop your business out, because we know the challenges that you face in terms of recruiting particular positions within to your business and sectors. Another example then is our stakeholder from SkillNet Ireland. And again, they have a portfolio of a number of actual projects, whether it be focusing on SkillNet Climate Ready Academy, the Innovation Exchange, where they match SMEs to large organizations to talk through the challenges and how maybe they face those challenges in terms of particular gaps in talent or skills, or certainly technology impacts within their business and how they've pivoted because of the impacts that they're facing every day, and maybe how an SME can equally face those challenges and build that journey of providing the solutions amongst the SME base that we have, and the supports that are available through Innovation Exchange for that. The other project is MentorWorks. And again, this is an opportunity that I speak about all the time to SMEs, where they get access to mentors for a free service under MentorWorks that is led by the Small Firms Association. And this is targeted business support programs focused on SME owners and managers in how to increase and maintain their business competitiveness. That looks at financial implications, growth implications, skills implications, and managing people. Any impacts that a business, an SME in particular, faces right now, to gain access to those mentors over a 12-week program but obviously look at how the mentor can support peer learning and targeted learning opportunities to meet some of the solutions that you're looking for as an owner and manager that is provided free. And that journey, I suppose, from a SkillNet Ireland perspective is demonstrated there as how they've progressed from 2019 to the projects that are now available in partnerships. Again, it's all about partnerships and collaboration with all of our state agencies together, if you like, in how we're supporting all of the businesses that need supports at a particular point in time. Another aspect that I said equally that supports the recruitment challenge that we know you as a business are facing is through other government departments. And one example here is through our Intrio services. We hold, again, like that, webinars and information sessions because the development from the Department of Social Protection over various different supports and services is something that maybe a lot of businesses are not currently tapping into. While I appreciate we're at full employment, what we do see, and certainly over the last number of years since the impacts of COVID, is the transition of the labour market from different businesses in different sectors that still currently exists. So we do have a cohort of individuals who are highly qualified, who move and transition between business and sectors, that certainly we want to look at how we place them in businesses. And the Intrio services have a huge national employer engagement unit where they cover off things like the recruitment space, where you get to advertise your roles that you're looking to recruit and having difficulty recruit free of charge on their portal. They look at job matching and events around that. We've collaborated on a number of those events where in a room or even on an online webinar like this, we'd have 150 to 200 employers linking in. They've recently also published a work placement opportunity where they get an opportunity with each employee where there's no full-time commitment on this, but certainly for those individuals who want to enter back into the workplace, maybe career changers or those entering back into the workplace who had to take time out for family needs or whatever it might be, that certainly they've an opportunity to do work placements and they financially support a business for taking those on with the financial subsidies identified here. They also have particular charters for those individuals who maybe have particular disabilities or come from various different marginalised groups. That certainly there's a structure and financial supports for adjusting your work environment to meet the needs of those individuals in taking them into the workplace and what supports you might require to adjust the work environment or certainly facilitate those individuals, whatever the ability or disability might be in those individuals. There are supports that you should be accessing from some of our other government departments. So that gives a snapshot, I suppose, of a number of key initiatives. I could talk about a lot more today, but I'm certainly very conscious that some of the businesses registered may not have already engaged in regional skills. So certainly the call to action today is maybe to start looking at, well, what are your priority areas? And maybe that call to action is engage with us on an individual basis. It's only through that individual connection that you get the opportunity, maybe at a granular level, to talk through with me what it might be that are your priorities right now. We held events, and this screenshot demonstrates some of the activities that we engage in with business and what they've benefited back. The business, I suppose, video here illustrates that. Now, I'm not going to play the video today. I've agreed with Kieran, we'll certainly send this out that you can link in directly after the webinar to play it yourself and then see and hear from other stakeholders how they've benefited and the importance of engaging in with the skills ecosystem in particular. This event was held in collaboration with the local enterprise office and Dublin City Council in particular. And it was again focusing on that engagement piece to find the awareness of the solutions that might you be facing right now and how the system is pivoting to react and providing those solutions at a point in time that suits you best. So, in summary, if you like, as I mentioned at the very start, the importance here is about the collaboration and working together for various different reasons to support your business and certainly your employees, most importantly. So, supporting those local economies, that the only thing really in terms of your business and as it grows and develops, everything is impacted and enabled by skills and talent. If you don't have the right individuals in place with the right skill sets to adjust as the business grows and develops, certainly that is going to be a continuous challenge for you. So it's supporting and enabling those skills provisions to meet that talent need that you're looking for, whether it's the graduates coming through the system or certainly those employee bases that are already working in your environment, but because they're impacted by digitalization or sustainability or whatever it might be, that you're looking for solutions to upskill those individuals. That's the supports that we have here for you. But more importantly, accessing an awareness of the state funded provisions. I'm still surprised each time that I engage with a business who actually pay for a consultant to come in and go through, I suppose, some of the provisions that are actually state funded that you wouldn't ordinarily know about because you haven't engaged already. You may have a connection in one, but certainly the full ecosystem that exists, probably and most likely when I do engage with companies, there is a solution there for you at a point that might suit. And if there isn't, we do certainly want to know why the system is not meeting that particular gap in order to then design with your cooperation something that can certainly meet that particular need. And that allows us to inform funding policy in the first instance of where the priorities lie in terms of what you've identified as your particular need. That free business impartial skills audit that I mentioned is really working with you on an individual basis, because again, some of those solutions that I mentioned earlier on might suit, but they may not suit you right now. So it could be looking at other particular skills areas that you might identify as part of that skills audit, that then we can clearly articulate, well, what solutions are there within the system for you. The collaboration, I suppose, is that key element between the educational providers and the business aspect to continue that conversation both now and into the future as other things arise that maybe you're looking at predicted impacts your business might have from a growth perspective. And certainly we know, as the final point, those recruitment challenges with full labour market and full employment in place almost, that there is opportunities there to still link in with financial supports and grow that talent pipeline and access wherever you can access those recruitment supports from all our stakeholders within the system to ensure that you have access and build that talent pipeline as you grow and develop too. So at this stage, what I'm going to do is stop talking, if you like, and open the floor. Kieran, if I may, we have time, and I'm conscious that that time is of the essence for those businesses logged in on the call. So I'm certainly happy to open it up now for anyone that would like to pose questions at this stage, or certainly, as I say, call to action is engage with me individually. My email contact is there on the screen, which you'll receive after, and happy to engage further with you on an individual basis where you have particular priorities that need to be addressed either right now or in the coming weeks and months. And thank you. Kieran, I'll hand it back to you.
That's great, Natasha. Thank you very much for a very informative presentation. We don't have any questions in the Q&A section, so if anybody has any questions, you might pop them in now, and we'll get them answered. If not, as Natasha said, her contact details are listed there, so you can ask her after this presentation if you wish. Natasha, I just have one question for you. Would you mind bringing me through what's involved in the skills audit?
Yeah, absolutely, Kieran. It's a good question. Very often, some of these, particularly if businesses have engaged before, when you talk about a skills audit, it seems, or maybe the perception is quite technical. It's not at all. There is no form filling out in this. That is one promise I can make. Certainly, I won't request anyone to fill out any form in particular. It's literally a conversation like this, Kieran, where it could be an online, whatever is facilitated for the business itself. It could be linking online if that suits the business, or I could certainly do a quick visit with the business on site, whatever suits best. And it's really looking at, well, okay, based on the business and the makeup of the business, for example, how many employees do you have? And based on that employee base, what kind of areas do they work in? What's their occupation every day? What do they get focused on? And maybe based on each of those occupations, what are the particular skill needs that you have first and foremost for those employees that you currently have employed? And maybe for those to progress, either progress at management level or pivot to other particular roles. What are the skills needs that you require to be addressed with some sort of skills provision solution that might help that individual progress because their job has changed or the area that they work in has changed, whether it be, that they need to do basic digital skills, or they need to be the person that's going to prioritize impacts on sustainability of the business, or now suddenly they're taking on responsibility to lead and manage an entire team. And that could be a particular skill need that a whole team might require, or just the management team might require. To then the conversation about, well, look, is there areas that you're finding difficulty in filling particular positions, that you want to grow your business because your customer base is growing or your particular operations and offering is growing, but you cannot access maybe the graduates, or maybe you can't recruit for particular positions that you want to try and recruit for. So that conversation then would focus on the other element of supports, whether it be a pipeline through the offering of apprenticeships, or it could be accessing those from the live register, or certainly where your business wants to, during particular seasonal months, that you want to access internships or graduateships from some of our further education providers or higher education providers, that you have a direct access, but we give you that point of contact directly in that provider that maybe actually ensures that pipeline facilitates the skills needs that you require coming into the business. So it's very much a conversation. Most of the time, the start of that journey is an hour conversation. It could be less, depending on the priorities. And once that journey starts, it means that the business maintains that link, whether it be me or then the connections that we've made for them. So we do a full report back here on for the business based on the first conversation I have with certain solutions. And that could be a number of different solutions, but there is no commitment for the business to actually take on anything at that point. We hope they do, but certainly at a point in time that it might suit them, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, or a year down the line. What I'm finding, certainly over the last 9 years, is businesses continuously engage with me because sometimes an impact on their daily business when they're trying to react to something says, yeah, I recall all right, we had a connection from Natasha initially that provided the solution at that point in time, but now the need is quite different. So I'll re engage with Natasha to see what's within the system right now, or maybe the financial supports that can be offered in accessing and tapping into other such provisions that maybe they hadn't done 6 months ago, that now they re engage to do that. So the journey, Kieran, can be quite different based on the initial skills audit as to that continues over time so that they know, look, there's one person that at any given time they can pop an email to me and say, look, we have a need. What do you think? Is there something out there? And who would you best advise us on to maybe connect with to meet that particular need at that particular time?
Fantastic, Natasha. Thanks very much for that explanation. We don't have any other further questions in the Q&A section, so I think we'll finish up there. And as Natasha mentioned, her contact details are there. We'll also share a PDF version of the slides from today, and I'll get that webinar up later on this afternoon. So keep an eye out on our website and our social channels for that link. And I just want to say thanks again, Natasha, for presenting today. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Kieran. Thanks a million.
Have a great day. Goodbye.